All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. In each of the last 7 years, the Philadelphia 76ers have made the playoffs, but you still got to go all the way back to 2001 to find the last time that they were able to get past the second round in the postseason. This time around, the Sixers were one and done, courtesy of their Atlantic Division rivals and the New York Knicks, as Philadelphia bowed out in 6 games. It's the same unfortunate story for the Philadelphia 76ers and their star, Joel Embiid, as unfortunately, and this is not a pile on Embiid. I'm just talking about the situation. He simply has been unable to stay healthy throughout his NBA career. Embiid missed 43 games during the regular season this year, primarily due to knee surgery. We saw Embiid come back towards the tail end of the regular season, look sharp, but you could still see it's one of those. It's tricky because Joel Embiid was out there, but he wasn't Joel Embiid, if you know what I mean, as far as the MVP type Joel Embiid. He was also dealing with Bell's palsy. He had the bad knee, still put up some tremendous performances. Okay. But you just have to wonder what if he had been fully healthy, of course. But, it's one of those that's just been one of the biggest knocks or takeaways from his, you know, illustrious NBA career. We're talking about a guy who is a former NBA MVP. He can be in that conversation every year to be the MVP. That's the type of talent that we're talking about with Embiid. But with that said, he's never been able to appear in 70 games uh, at any point during the regular season. And now at the age of 30, and I talked about this last year when the Sixers were eliminated. How much more can they expect him to play at a quality level due to his injury history? Okay. One thing we know for sure, and that's that Tyrese Maxey is the real deal. I mean, we saw Tyrese Maxey throughout the season in the absence of Joel Embiid take his game to the next level. And honestly, it really started last year when the Sixers still had um, James Harden. And once they got rid of James Harden, it was one of those where, Maxi really began to take his game to the next level. And of course, this year with the Embiid injury, where he became the focal point of the offense. And of course, we saw some of that, play out for the 76ers in this series that they just lost to the New York Knicks. Of course, just look at game 5 for an example, as Tyrese Maxey had one of the best playoff performances in Sixers franchise history as he helped Philadelphia stave off elimination and force a game 6. Uh, Another disappearing act by Tobias Harris, in critical moments. It's one of those where he had 9 points. He averaged 9 points per game throughout the series against the New York Knicks. And then, of course, in game 6, which, of course, was Philadelphia's last, he was held to a big goose egg. Tobias Harris's contract is up with the 76ers, and I would be highly surprised if we saw him wearing a Sixers uniform come next season. Now, clearly, the folks in Philadelphia have gotten tired of the same old song for the Sixers. And the reason why I bring it up, you look at games 3 and 4 of the series when the series shifted to the Wells Fargo Center, and the Knicks fans made the trek, from the New York area. Obviously, it's right hop, skip, and a jump down the pike to Philadelphia, and they basically took over the place. Don't get me wrong, you still had Sixers fans there, but I've never really seen that situation in a postseason game in Philadelphia like that. For the Sixers or for the most part for any sport. Granted, you do have fans that will travel to to see their team play. We've seen that, but never to that extent. And then, of course, we saw Sixers owner Josh Harris, purchase the last 2,000 tickets that were available because he wanted Sixers fans there. I think that's in part due to the fact, in my opinion, okay, I think it's in part to the fact that, you know what, these Sixers fans have been through a lot. And I say this because, they went through the whole process thing. Okay. And, that was very frustrating. Okay. And of course, they bottomed out in 2016 when they only won 10 games. And if anybody remembers that season, the Sixers really had to fight, scrap, and claw to get those 10 wins. Then, we saw things start to turn around, and you're like, okay, is this going to be the year? And then, they consistently get to the second round, and it's that yeah, but, and that yeah, but syndrome continues to plague the 76ers. And you know what? You can only tantalize, a fan base so much without being able to take that next step. And it's one of those where maybe if one of these years, had the Sixers have been able to get to the conference finals, had they have been able to win the Eastern Conference and possibly even an NBA championship, I don't think we're having this same conversation. Steve Peter, what's going on, my man? Long time, but it's always a pleasure to have you chiming in. And you're saying there hashtag Knicks tape. I know who you're going for. I know who you were going for. I know who you're still going for, and I know who you're going to ride or die with. And I'm definitely going to touch on that in a minute. So definitely hang tight. Uh, you look at this right here. It was a tough first year for Nick Nurse as the head coach of the Sixers. I think Nick Nurse is a quality coach. He proved that during his tenure with the Toronto Raptors. And now he's trying to bring that same energy, if you will, to the 76ers. And the reason why I say it was a tough year, because he did not have his best player available for about half of the season. But nonetheless, there are going to be plenty of changes heading into next season for the 76ers. One thing for sure, Philadelphia, they got plenty of money to play with, okay? Because Joel Embiid is really the only guy under contract for next season. So a lot of these guys that you saw coming down the stretch for the 76ers in the playoffs for Philadelphia, they're not going to be with this team next year. So that eases things for a lot of reasons, because now if you're Nick Nurse, you can no longer say, hey, this is the team that I inherited. Now you have the opportunity to bring in your type of guys, whether it's at the defensive end of the floor, whether it's at the offensive end of the floor, combo guys, whomever. Now you get a better opportunity to shape this roster in your own image. One thing is for sure, Tyrese Maxey is about to get paid. And clearly, the Sixers are not going to have a problem going out there giving him top dollar, because this young man balled out, and I think he has the ability to continue to ball out. Now, one thing Philadelphia might want to think about is, maybe, is it time for them to start transitioning from Embiid to Maxi as the face? And the reason why I say this is, clearly, we know that Joel Embiid still has the talent, but it's just that he's been unable to stay healthy. For the Sixers to take that next step, you're clearly going to need Joel Embiid, but how much more can you rely on him just due to the injuries? I think it needs to be a scenario where it's kind of like with Minnesota with Anthony Edwards and Carl Anthony Towns, where they shifted the narrative, if you will. And I'm not saying that Tyrese Maxey is Anthony Edwards, okay? But nonetheless, I'm just saying from that standpoint, you got to kind of shift uh, from this aspect, just due to the fact of the injury history. But nonetheless, I still think that Joel Embiid can be effective. They're definitely going to have to manage his minutes. And most importantly, they need the big fella to be healthy. One thing's for sure, I've talked about this before, and I will say it again. The Philadelphia 76ers made a huge mistake back in 2019. Remember, that was a year they got to the second round. They lost a heartbreaker in game seven to the Toronto Raptors on that shot by Kawhi Leonard, a Nick Nurse led team. And of course, the Raptors would go on to win the NBA championship that year. But the mistake that the Sixers made was allowing Jimmy Butler out of the door. They basically chose Tobias Harris and Ben Simmons over Jimmy Butler, and look how that has worked out. Now, don't get me wrong, Jimmy Butler hasn't won a championship, but in 2 years since then, okay, two times, he led the Miami Heat to the NBA Finals, and you just have to wonder what could have been in Philadelphia as you had this man in your fold. And I think the Sixers are still regretting that move. So I look at it like this: I expect them to be active, and it's going to come down to, of course, the health of Embiid. They are going to re-sign Tyrese Maxey. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about that. And it also comes down to what pieces are they going to be able to put around their stars. Also, you look at it. You just look at this series. Philadelphia never had an answer for Jalen Brunson. And I mean, don't get me wrong, Jalen Brunson during his time with the Knicks has emerged as one of the better players in the NBA, regardless of the position. Definitely an MVP candidate in my book. And you just look at it. I mean, as the series progressed, he got better. He got 22 in game one, 24 in game two, then 39 in game three in the loss for New York, and then 47 in game four, 40 in game five, and then, of course, 41 and 12 assists to close out Philadelphia in game six. The Sixers are also going to look back on the missed opportunities in this series. Philadelphia had an opportunity to steal either game one or game number two at Madison Square Garden. Could have definitely changed the momentum of this series, especially being that the Sixers had leads in both of those games. And, just playing the what if card for very briefly, you just have to wonder what if the Sixers had been able to win those two games right there. We're probably not having this conversation. A lot of what ifs for the Sixers because clearly uh, the injury to Embiid changed a lot of things this year because prior to being hurt, we're talking about Philly as one of the top three teams in the Eastern Conference, and they really slid down the standings, and they had to fight scrap and claw in that to get in that play-in tournament. They were almost on the verge of avoiding it, but nonetheless, getting that seven seed out of there. But the thing is, for Philadelphia, like I said, changes are coming. I think there's going to be changes aplenty as they look to reshape this roster. They got to get better defensively. And now, if you're Nick Nurse, you have the opportunity to do that basically with a clean slate. So I'm really going to be interested to see what type of players that they bring in over the summer in order to make this roster better. But nonetheless, it's the same old narrative that the folks in Philadelphia are tired of hearing. Okay, this team has what it takes to make the playoffs. Joel Embiid is one of the better players in the NBA, but he's getting hurt, and you still have a Sixers team, and it's very hard to believe. You got to go back to the Allen Iverson MVP year to find the last time that the Sixers got past the second round. And of course, that was the last time that the 76ers appeared in the NBA Finals. The folks in Philadelphia, it's a gritty sports town. And the thing is, they're going to tell you how it is, whether you want to hear it or not. And they want to see their teams, not just the Sixers. It's also about the Flyers. It's also about the Eagles and the Phillies as well. They want to see their teams compete for championships. And when you give them a reason to cheer and celebrate, they're going to be out there supporting you. And if not, well, you're going to hear it. But nonetheless, I think, in my opinion, I think the folks there are getting tired of the same old song and they need to see better results this time of the year from their beloved 76ers. Will the narrative change for Philadelphia next year? Only time will tell. But nonetheless, things definitely have to change for the Sixers. So, folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank all of you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on the X, formerly known as Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. Now, you can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So, once again, fine folks, My name is William Martin, and I am signing off. And I'm saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.